Well, thanks so much for taking some time out to attend this session, which I think it'll be a really, really nice end to the show. So just to set the scene a little bit before I introduce Caitlin, basically the theme for the Accelerate stage this year is Tech for Good. So how can tech be used for good purposes? And we talk about good for events, but also good for the planet as well. And that's our overall theme over the 3 days. Then what we've done is we've looked at each day, and we're doing today, which is about now, stuff that's happening now, tech at the moment for now. Then we go near, which is tomorrow. So we're going to look at sort of almost next sort of year, maybe 2 years. And then on Thursday, we go a bit tomorrow's world, and we look right to the future, and we start going next. So what's next? What are we all going to start looking towards? So Thursday's a really good day for stargazing, but hopefully the narrative goes through the whole days. Now, we really appreciate you coming in and having a look at these talks, but obviously, as much as we like to think that you come to absolutely all of them, you possibly can't. So just to let you know that every single talk is recorded, and you'll be able to look at that on YouTube after the event. So I really, really encourage you to do so. Like I say, we've got this sort of narrative all the way through. So if you can come back and check in, hopefully you get a really good experience because of the way we've done that. So that's how it's all going to work. What we wanted to do was try and make sure that we're mixing the practical with the visionary stuff. So I'm really, really delighted to invite Caitlin Kobrak from DRPG onto the stage. DRPG are a really, really interesting, very successful and one-to-watch company that work across the globe. Caitlin's one of their star players. She's really, really exciting, and she's a really, really good speaker and one to watch. So give her a warm welcome to the Accelerate stage. Caitlin, thank you so much.
That was an exceptionally nice introduction. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to follow that. Well, I am actually, with today's session. So thank you very much for coming. This is quite a lot more people than I was expecting. But I am going to be talking this afternoon about kind of 5 hacks for better event marketing through social media. And I realised when me and Ali had talked about what this session was going to be, we used the term hack. To me, a hack is kind of like I've gone to IKEA, I've bought a lovely lampshade, and I've turned it into a chair. It's magic. Unfortunately, I'm not a magician, and a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, I think, are tips and tricks and things that you probably are already aware of, are doing. But these are, let's call them 5 steps that will make sure that what you're doing from a marketing perspective will help better, whether this is an event that you are planning or whether, like me, you work more now for a company that works within the space. Now, you might be wondering why. I mean, Ali did a great introduction, but who are you? Why are you coming to talk about this? So, if I can make it work, I think tech is a useful part of moving a slide on. Wonderful. So I'm Caitlin. This is me, just in case you can't see me. And as Ali mentioned, I work for a company called DRPG. And we're a global creative communications agency. And my job is as a digital marketing executive. So I now look after a lot more of the broader presence that we have as a company online, from website to kind of our digital presence on Google. But prior to my role at DRPG, I worked for another event agency and for 5 years worked client-facing as a social media manager. And a lot of this work was in the B2B space for events. I have been here for many years doing stuff for tech companies. And so I have a vast amount of experience in doing this for clients. But it's important, and I think relevant to say that this is not geared in one direction. This is marketing as a whole, and I think it's important because there's no quick answer. I'm not here with a magic ball, as much as I wish I could be, to say that you'll leave tonight or this afternoon and be like, I can nail any marketing for an event or for me as a company, and it's going to be extremely successful. But I will help give some tips to do it. So, where are we starting with this? Well, the first point, and I love this because you come in and I give you a title like 5 hacks, you think this is going to be brilliant, and then I go, we need to establish some objectives. We're going to talk strategy. Now, this is an integral part. I don't think we can do any marketing, any successful social media marketing, without first going, what are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? But I think that that as a statement can be very overwhelming to kind of first go in. You're sat in a room, you're like, okay, what is it that we're trying to do? And why are we trying to do it? But for me, there are three very clear ways to get there. And I look at this like a bit like a ladder, or more specifically, a little step ladder to get to the little top of your shelf, something I use on a regular basis because of my height. But you need to go with these three rungs to first establish where we're going with some successful marketing. And for me, it always starts at the top or the bottom of our ladder, but the top of what you're aiming to do, and that's the business objective. So what is it that your company is doing? So I'm going to use IBTM as an example, and I don't work for them, but I found on the internet that they said that their goal, their singular goal, is to encourage the events industry to create exceptional experiences for their customers. Wonderful. That's quite a broad statement. That's their objective. Now, what that probably means from a business perspective and for us as marketeers is actually we want to be seen on a global scale as the industry event to attend to create the best experience for clients. They want exceptional experiences. That's about showcasing the creativity. So we've established that top kind of aim and objective. And then you can look, and really only when you've gone there, you can start to look at what that means from a marketing side. What are we then trying to do from a marketing side? Okay, so it's about creating exceptional experiences for clients. We're going to go with, it's about brand awareness, about better known within the industry for being the event that establishes this. Or it's also probably that from a marketing standpoint, oh, we need to sell tickets to this event. That's a bog standard one, a great one. It's definitely needed. And for me, the marketing objectives is we're not looking at tactics at this point. We're not even really considering social media. We're looking at this in what are we needing to achieve to help reach that business goal? What can we be doing? Once you've got that, so let's say we're going more ticket sales and brand awareness are the marketing objectives or the marketing goals. It's then when you can start to look at the KPIs and the more specific social media objectives and kind of aims that you need to then hit. But it's only at that point that we can do this. And for me, the reason why that comes kind of the third rung in the sector is because everything comes off that top point of, as a business, this is what we're trying to do. This event is about the experiential side. We want people to feel that creativity. That's going to come through into the marketing, whether it's the language of the content that you're producing, or whether it's just in terms of the conversations in the room when you're creating the ideas. Okay, what's that post going to touch upon? What do we need to be capturing at the event to then continue to hit these marks, to hit the marketing objectives, but also the business objectives? And I'll come back to that because I think sometimes starting with the strategy is not as fun. So then my kind of second hack or tip is understand your expertise. Now, I don't mean sit down and go, oh, well, I really like LinkedIn. I'm very good at utilizing LinkedIn, but I can't dance, so I'm not on TikTok. I'm not going into the definition of like what your expertise specifically are. We're looking at this more in the context. Well, okay. In the last 15 years, social media has dramatically changed. The landscape of social media has massively changed. In the last 3 years, they've massively changed. And I define this as being there are two forms of people within the marketing space. And we're looking at this on a kind of a B2B standpoint. You have your content creators, and then you have a social media manager. Now, on paper, very similar. The expectation of what is delivered is very similar. In a B2B space, you probably have your team, or you are, as an individual, defined as a marketing or social media manager. So what does that mean? Okay, well, we look after the content, we create the marketing plans, and we're posting what goes out. What's a content creator? Oh, these are people that create content, put it out on social media, and the ones to post. It's exactly the same, but a content creator is, I define, someone who has that more creative output. And the examples I have up here, and this is going to be very embarrassing because I stuck the pictures up. You've got Stephen Bartlett, who, I don't know if people know who this man is, but he created a marketing agency in the UK called The Social Chain. Very good marketing agency. He started it when I think he was 19. Him and his co-founder dropped out of university. But nowadays, if you're in the UK, he's one of the Dragon Den, or dragons from Dragon Den. So he's a very successful businessman. He's on TV, and he has an extremely successful podcast called A Diary of a CEO that started from the YouTube channel that he created for Social Chain as a business. So it was utilizing YouTube as a business objective to talk about what they do. But it has gone far beyond that, and now it's his podcast. It's about Stephen Bartlett. I would argue he's a content creator. He's creating content, he puts out there, he is front and center of all those marketing kind of points. The other guy, and this is where it's embarrassing, guys, I can't pronounce his name, but he's the TikTok train guy, and he's brilliant. And I highly recommend you go and find him. I think it's Francis, but his surname I'm not going to try and pronounce. But he is fantastic, and what he did is, I think, in lockdown, but he got a 360 camera, stuck it to his head, and he's a train spotter. And he goes to train stations around the UK, and he watches these trains. And I know, I'm really selling it, but it is fantastic. And it's so fantastic that he has worked with the likes of Gucci, big brands. He's modeled for them, and in the UK, he now has a TV show on Channel 4 where he goes around with brilliant entertainers, and I think they do a lot of random stuff, including train spotting. But my point with these two, and why I talk about content creation versus a social media manager, is I'm not a content creator. I understand how marketing works. I love social media. I use it. I know when we should be posting. I love it. But I'm not the person to be in front of that camera. I'm not going to be the next TikTok star. That's not my skill set. It's not what I want to do. And it's important to kind of note that when answering this point of knowing your expertise, it's about what type of team or individuals do you need to kind of gain support on to maybe hit the content that is more content creation, about putting people in front of the screen, being kind of the face of your brand, of your event, because it is, and I think some of the sessions earlier today talked a lot about how video is front and center, and it's fundamentally where marketing's going, but you need the right types of people to fill those roles. And actually, I would argue, I don't think that means that we all, as marketing managers, need to be doing that. The ask isn't to make us all become content creators, but know where your limit is, where your expertise is, to then bring in the right types of people. I see, it's not really hacks, is it? I'm like, go and find your audience. Oh, but where are they? I think the biggest question we get asked in the B2B space is, what social media channel should I be on? And there is no magic wand that's going to tell you, oh yeah, it's LinkedIn. I mean, it is LinkedIn. That's a brilliant one to be on. But there's so many out there, and it's not like, well, if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm going to have a very successful B2B marketing campaign. It's not as quick as that. It's about understanding that really we are marketing now to individuals, and we have been for a long time. But I would say that about 5 years ago, it was very clean cut. You might have started having an Instagram account, but very much so the channels that you were using were the big five. You were kind of sticking to the ones that we know and trust. But recently, as in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a massive amount of new kind of social channels that have come out. So we have TikTok, which is fantastic and is a brilliant space to be on from a B2B space, from a standpoint of B2B. If you have content creators in your team, if you are a content creator, it's a brilliant channel to be on. YouTube, been around for decades, fantastic. Again, amazing in a B2B space. Podcasts nowadays are going back to having video content included. But it's great if you have content creators, if you have that team around you that can support that and create the right type of content that's going to stand out. LinkedIn is amazing. It's a great channel to be on. Fantastic, go with it. Instagram, also brilliant. Not so much now to do with the imagery that you post, much more pushing you into kind of video. So again, we're kind of petering out on a side of, if you have content creators in your team, go ahead and use it. But we also have had, in the last couple of years, stuff like Clubhouse. Very much, I don't know if anyone else like me in lockdown, stuck at home in their bedroom, listening to people have a natter on Clubhouse. It was great. That came, it was massive, people were using it, especially in the events industry, and then it petered back out again. But it still has a massive audience, and your audience might be there. You also have Be Real. I love Be Real. It's a brilliant app. I don't know if I'd class it as a social media app, but again, when we're talking about where the audience are or what channels they're on, it's important to understand the scope of what we're talking about and where they could be. And I suppose this idea of find your audience goes back to what the objective is, what you're trying to do. Because the great thing about strategy is we're not looking at it from, this week we want to do this. It's far longer term. We're considering where we want to be in a year's time, in 3 years' time. And if you are like IBTM, it's an annual event, it's multiple times a year, that for me gives a massive scope of where you could start to explore what channels are we going to try and infiltrate. And I say infiltrate because the audience that we have now at this time, in 5 years, it's going to be looking very different. You're going to have a lot more younger people coming into the industry who are going to be attending. So whilst you might be sat there going, I don't need to be on TikTok. It's like, yeah, maybe not right now, but who is using that platform? And are they the audience and the kind of people that you want to actually be being seen by and attracting them? So that's what we mean by know your audience. It's quite standard, and I know I really do wish I could always come to this and say, here is where you should be. Ignore everything else. This is the best. But unfortunately, there are so many brilliant channels out there, and it's just about establishing who you're trying to target and why, and giving. And I'm a big believer in giving things a go as well. I think sometimes in the B2B space, we can be a little bit hesitant to kind of test the waters, to give new things a kind of try, and I suppose go out with a bit of a, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but let's see what happens. And these channels and giving things like this a go, TikTok, it works. There is an audience out there. It just takes a bit of seeing where things fall. So the fourth of my 5 hacks/tips is build your own rule book. The industry of social media, even in the last year or so, keeps shifting. We are not, as marketers, in control of the decisions that those platforms make. We've all seen what's happening with Twitter and Elon Musk, and for some that can be a little bit disconcerting. Who knows where that's going to go. And why I look at this as like a place that we have to kind of consider when it comes to the hacking of your marketing is because some people will tell you there's a perfect time to post, and there is. In a B2B space, please do not post on a Saturday. It's never going to be seen as by your audience in the best way. But as we've established, you are speaking to an individual. So yes, I could stand here and say, create some videos. It works. We know it's where a lot of the social channels are going. It is the most interesting. I think we all agree that when you're sat at home scrolling, a video stands out far more than a branded graphic. But we can't predict the future of where these channels are going. So why, again, say, why do you need to know what your expertise is? Well, if you're not a content creator, then don't try and become one unless you have that time to invest in it, because really right now we're in a space where it's not about the content, it's about consistency. Yes, you could write an exceptional thought leadership piece that highlights that this event, IBTM, is the event to come to if you want to create exceptional experiences. It could be brilliant. But if you only post it once, people aren't going to see it. So consistency is far more important. But that doesn't mean that you have to now go and post the same piece of content on Instagram and LinkedIn every week and say, oh, we've done a great thought leadership. It's about testing the water, seeing what you enjoy creating as an agency or as an individual, and then starting to kind of note, okay, this is more successful for us. We're seeing that people are picking this up, that we're getting the call to action, the click-throughs that we want to be seeing. It's about finding that different ways to stand out. And I know that sounds, I sound a little bit wishy-washy. It's like, okay, but consistency and being there on the week week by week basis and putting yourself out there is going to do far more good than creating one piece of exceptional content. Still create that exceptional piece of content, but post about it more regularly, share it. Now, I love data. I get fascinated by the kind of social media side from a back-end perspective of what people are reading, what they're clicking, what is getting me back to the objectives that kind of we're setting at the start of any project. But not everyone likes this side. And I understand that when we are looking at successful marketing, it's very easy to go back to the numbers of, okay, but we are wanting to get a bigger audience to our event. So I want to see that people are clicking through to the website and coming along. I want to see them purchasing that ticket. But I often say that the data's only one side, because you can get really hung up on the numbers. They are not going to represent that individual person. And a lot of the time, the most successful piece of marketing comes back to the face-to-face side of it. As an events industry, we know face-to-face, talking to people, is still so integral as an industry. And that, I think, applies when we look at social media and marketing. You have to remember, at the end of the day, it's a person that you're communicating to, even if you are trying to get content that is then seen by thousands of people. And that's what I say about building your own rule book, creating your own rules in how things work. Because the way that I market my events or the projects that I do isn't exactly the same as everyone else's. Because whilst I love data, I think that the engagement of 10 people beats it being seen by 150 people. That's really low numbers, but you get the gist. And so I think it's important to remember that and to create something that works for you. And then my fifth point is about creating campaigns. And for me, because in the last couple of years I've stepped a little bit further away than just doing social media, a campaign is about the other areas that you can touch upon. Social media is just a tool. We don't control that tool. We cannot tell you where Mark Zuckerberg's going to go, and he may change his mind, and that really messes up our numbers and the things that we are kind of so reliant on because of reporting and because we do have to hit our KPIs and objectives. So for me, creating campaigns is about looking at the broader picture. Money talks. We all know this. Unfortunately, it really talks in terms of social. Nowadays, posting something organic isn't going to get the reach or be seen in the same way that if you put money behind it on a paid side as it would. And that's just, it's an unfortunate trend. Marketing and social media is a business. They have to make money, and this is where it's gone in. And so all of these kind of points, these 5 hacks, these 5 tips that I'm giving is because I wouldn't put myself as reliant on these channels are going to sustain what I'm being told I need to achieve. We go back to the strategy and the objectives. If I'm here to help my business, or say I was doing the marketing for IBTM, if the aim is to be seen as the best event for industry professionals to create these exceptional experiences, I have to hit numbers that reach that. I've got to get my KPIs to that. So I need to find the different ways to reach that goal. And sometimes social media isn't going to always be the answer. So you mix it up. You look back at newsletters. And again, as we're back in a space where we know being here in person and having conversations is so much more, not so much more, but it's great. It's a really fantastic thing. I much prefer it than talking to people in DMs. You can start to look at, should we be sending out direct mailers? Is sending something out and spending £1,500 sending it to so many number of people better than putting £1,500 behind some paid campaigns? So this is where we're looking at what are we trying to achieve? When we look at all the different elements, when we go back to the first hack, okay, it's the strategy. What's your objective? Great, we've established that. Then you go, what's my expertise? Oh, I'm not a content creator. I'm not going to be in front of the camera. So you start to look at other types of content that can support it. You've looked at building your own kind of rule book of when you're posting. And then we can come back to this and go, I'm looking at this in a holistic approach. There's other ways that I can touch upon achieving those objectives with the broader sense of social. So I've really rattled on with that, but they are the 5 tips, and I would appreciate any questions. And I realise there's a lot I've not been able to talk about. I haven't really talked about what is successful kind of content. But if you have any questions, I'd be very willing to try and help answer it.
So before we do, a quick round of applause for the lovely Caitlin for taking us through that. Caitlin, thank you. And we will switch to Slido, I think, is what we do next, to see if there's any questions, which at the moment it looks like you've been that comprehensive, Caitlin.
I don't know if I just whittled on, but we'll
that
go
we've got
with
there.
comprehensive.
Now, we equally take questions in the old-fashioned form, the analog variety of putting your hand up. That is just as good an excuse. We'll give it a couple of seconds. If you've got something to say, there you go. We'll go to question over here. Just a sec.
Hello. I was just wondering what you made of what was happening at Twitter over the last few weeks, and how it would affect a B2B social media campaign.
That's a good question. I think with anything, I think we've been able to rely on a few social channels to be there in the last kind of 10 years, and Twitter's that. So you've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you kind of have YouTube as well, and LinkedIn. I think it's a very disconcerting space. I don't think that it's about to disappear. I think it's far too ingrained in a lot of in a lot of marketers, but just in a lot of people's lives. It has big presence in kind of the journalist community as well. But it does make me concerned, because it's that point again that you could have planned a whole year of content and gone, great, I'm going to put stuff out on Twitter. And it's like, well, who knows if it's going to be there. So I think it does make me concerned, but also it's why I think it's so important to understand what's happening in the landscape, why kind of some of the other channels is interesting to look at. And I think my point that I tried to make, although maybe not the best, on like the B2B side, if we can be a bit hesitant to try new things, it's because we think we have to be at the forefront of technology, or we want to be there right when it starts. But actually, with a lot of the different channels like Clubhouse and stuff, if you take a step back and you kind of get involved when you think, okay, this might be relevant to my audience, I can see that people are there, you aren't investing as much time into something that may not suit you. So yeah,
by all means, read that one.
For content creators creating an event, do you have any tips for creating an ongoing narration? I mean, it's a big job. I think it comes down to establishing what story you're trying to tell throughout the day. So what is it that you want your audience to feel at the end? What is it that you want to be highlighting to not just those. Just actually, really, when it comes to creating content at an event, if that's where we're going, it's not for the people who are there. They're not watching it, they're not seeing it. It's actually for people who are at home, who maybe are wanting to miss out. So it's how can you highlight that this is the place to be? And then I think it's that consistency. Well, it's a great keyword, isn't it? Consistency. But it's showcasing it from the start to the end, not missing anything, and giving them that kind of overarching experience. So.
Fantastic. Brill. Is there any other questions? If not, we will give you 3 whole minutes of extra time on the IBTM floor. I think we've good. Well, look, a final round of applause for Caitlin for being awesome, and have an amazing day. Tomorrow we go to NEAR. So this is now. Tomorrow we go to NEAR. So please, if you can, take some time to see what's going on tomorrow. We've got an amazing program. So have a good rest of the evening, and see you tomorrow. Bye now.